All right. So Roosevelt has been reelected to an unprecedented third term. Uh, oath of office would be, actually, it's when they had moved it. It's moves to January now instead of March. If I recall, this was the one. So anyway, so 1941, he's trying to find a way to get the United States ready for war. He's trying to find a way to help the British, the French are out of it, stay afloat, hoping maybe they can defeat Hitler. And he's also juggling the Japanese situation. So he's got a lot on his plate as we go into 1941. Now, the immediate problem is Great Britain. Uh, Remember, under the Neutrality Act, we can now sell them weapons, but they're still cash and carry, but the British are running out of money. Roosevelt desperately wants to find a way to help them. They've ordered all kinds of airplanes and weapons. We've getting them destroyers, but they're at their financial. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel. So the Roosevelt administration gets this through Congress, something called the Lend-Lease Act. Okay? The Lend-Lease Act. It's on the outline up there. Okay? This is a big deal. What the Lend-Lease Act authorizes the president to do is lend or give munitions, weaponry to any country whose defense is deemed necessary to the defense of the United States. This is really geared to Great Britain. They're the only people fighting the Germans at this time. Now, we also did some Lend-Lease. Roosevelt was talking about something called hemisphere defense. He really thought, the Western Hemisphere should, try to band together and make sure the Germans don't get encroaching over here. So we did, offer some assistance to Latin American countries and South American countries. But really, the Lend-Lease Act is designed to help Great Britain. Now, Roosevelt goes on the radio in one of his fireside chats. Now, here's a picture of the fireside chat here. I don't know if this is the exact one. It may just be a generic picture. But, hey, just for fun. Need my pen here. Which radio network is missing? Well, here's NBC. Here's CBS. Here's the Mutual Broadcasting Network. Won't go into that. Is there anything missing that maybe you might see at home? Yeah. A, B, C. The American Broadcasting Company didn't exist back then. What it was is NBC was so large, the National Broadcasting Company was so large, we actually had two networks. It had NBC Red and NBC Blue. Okay? And like one might be doing entertainment programming, the other one doing news. After World War II, as we start to move towards like the 50s, and they start rolling out television, one of the things that was done to satisfy worries about anti-trust legislation or monopolies and stuff is the NBC network was split. They split apart the blue and the red into two separate networks, and that's where we got ABC, okay? Which is Channel 8 here in Dallas. Okay. Does that have anything to do with World War II? No, just some useless trivia to brighten your day. Okay. So it's NBC, CBS, and the Mutual Broadcasting Network. And so Roosevelt gets on the radio on this fireside chat, explains how Lend-Lease is, what it is, and he uses an analogy. Okay, he says, look, if your neighbor's house was on fire and they asked to borrow your garden hose, would you lend them your garden hose? And I would ask, usually we were doing this class in person, I would ask that, and usually someone would say, sure, and I'd say, why? And someone would say, well, it's the neighborly thing to do. And I'd say, yeah, but what's the real reason? And usually somebody gets it. What are you afraid of happening? The fire might spread to your house. So what Roosevelt's thinking is if we can keep Great Britain in the war, maybe they can take care of Germany, or at least buy us some time to figure out what to do with the problem. So yes, we will lend Great Britain a fire hose or a garden hose. And under Lend-Lease, huge amounts of money are spent aiding all kinds of other countries, primarily, originally, Great Britain, okay? But many other countries as well as time goes on. Okay? French, like I said, countries down in Mexico and not Mexico, well, Mexico, yeah, and then Central America. And I mean, all kinds of aid rolls out. Let me get you a figure here. Okay, I dug out a figure here. Lend-Lease aid. The United States gave away eventually something like $50 billion with a B in Lend-Lease material. Some of this was lent and was theoretically returned after the war. Some of it was just given. I mean, warplanes get shot down, tank motors get burned out. I mean, a lot of this stuff after the war, we don't want it back. Just scrap it. Okay. Some was returned to us. Some was paid for after the war. But we start giving aid to all kinds of countries. But originally, the major intent was to funnel aid to Great Britain. Okay? All right. Then something happens. In June of 1941, the Germans invade the Soviet Union. This is a game changer. Okay? And the Soviets are like, what? We had a non-aggression pact. Okay? The legend is that Soviet trains heading west into Germany carrying wheat that was being sold to Germany passed German tanks rolling into the Soviet Union. I don't know if that's true or not. It sounds plausible. All right. Now, Stalin's like befuddled. It's like some historical accounts say that Stalin was just like stunned for about 24 hours because he has this non-aggression pact with the Germans. All of a sudden, well, gosh, Hitler's broken the pact. You can imagine that. But this changes the game because now Germany is involved in a two-front war. And I think I've got a map here. Let me find the map. Let me erase the little red squiggly lines. Well, okay. There's the map. Okay. Now, this is a big deal. Okay. So here's where the Germans start, over here. And on this, if we were putting this up on the PowerPoint, it'd be easier to see. You can see these are different colors. Okay. But the Germans advance, deep into Soviet territory. Now, this is like 1,000-mile front. It's hard to see the key up here, right? It's too small on this computer screen. But this is probably like 1,000 miles north to south. It's huge. Okay. It's really spreading the Germans thin, and they have some help. There's some like Italian divisions, and I think there were some Romanian, maybe. Some of the minor, Hitler allies were going along because a lot of people didn't like the Soviet Union. But it's basically a German show, and this catches the Soviets, like I said, largely by surprise. They have to fall back. Now, two things are happening here. Okay, so one of these is Moscow. It's hard to see. Gosh, this is small. As the Soviets fall back, they're taking horrible losses, of course, being caught by surprise. But as the Germans penetrate deeper into the Soviet Union, their supply lines are getting longer. Remember, everything has to come back here from Germany, right? Okay. So the Soviets can have a huge country. They can trade miles for time. Okay. So as the Soviets fall back and recover from the shock, their supply lines are getting shorter. As the Germans advance deeper into the Soviet Union, their supply lines are getting longer. Okay? And then Soviet resistance starts to, stiffen. And as they get closer into Mother Russia, troops might start fighting a little more harder to defend, the motherland. Okay? And the German offensive will eventually bog down in September. Okay? Kind of on this far line here. So the Germans have advanced deep into Soviet territory, but they can't get as far as Moscow before the winter hits. And the winters in this area are really, really bad. Okay, so the Germans don't have the right kind of equipment. I mean, they've been having to funnel ammunition and food to the lines. That's the most important thing. So the Germans don't have proper winter gear. They don't have the heavy-duty coats. And so the German offensive kind of peters out as we go into the fall. But This has, like I said, repercussions. Hitler now is fighting Great Britain and the Soviet Union. Okay? Churchill, who's been basically holding the fort by Great Britain's on their own, quickly hops a plane, arranges to go over to the Soviet Union and arrange and meet with Marshal Stalin. Now, this surprised some people because Churchill never had anything really good to say about the communists, and some people confronted him on this. Well, gee, Mr. Churchill, I thought you weren't big fans of the Soviet Union. Churchill said something along the lines, I'll paraphrase, if Hitler invaded hell, I would bargain with the devil. And so Churchill goes over and tries to find out things he could do to aid the Soviets in their war against the Germans. And at this point, the Americans will start offering Lend-Lease to the Soviets as well. We send them airplanes, we send them trucks, small arms and stuff. But the things they really needed most were the trucks, because this is just such a big geographical area they're trying to cover. So, but we sent them a lot of airplanes and other eccentric things. Apparently, a lot of spam. Apparently, the Soviets like spam. Meanwhile, back in the Atlantic, the U.S. is still looking for ways to try to deal with the German situation. And I'm coming up on the time limit here, so maybe I'll go ahead and stop here and jump into another video slot and pick up with patrolling the North Atlantic.